Today we will be using a little floor vacuum, try and see how well it can get some of the little dirt and debris off the floor of the tank. My tank's not too awful, but there is some poop that I'd like to be able to surface clean if the opportunity presented itself to be done quick and easy. There's my little parrotfish back there hiding. It's not a very big tank. So here we go. Today we're going to be piecing together a little siphon filter that I decided to buy. The reason that I purchased this is because it's a little bit smaller than the typical style siphon. This one is a little rigged up. Reason being is I do have a sand bottom aquarium and I didn't want to be able to have this go completely into the sand, so I used these little dowels to be able to, comfortably surf across the top of the water. Anyway, I figured I'd give this one a try just to see if it's any better. It is a gravel cleaner, but they're all kind of the same concept of a siphon filter. Also, I like the fact that this hose is a little bit smaller. For my tank being as small as it is, I can get in and get out pretty quick. So, as you can see, it's I want to say this is Hygger Aquarium HG956. So it came in this neat little box, nothing too special. And inside of it, we have this little trigger mechanism, which appears it has a connection for the hose in the front of it. This is more than likely where you connect the siphon. And then we have a few pieces here that we'll get into. It's nicely packaged. The hose and instruction manual. Now, before I open this up, I did take a look at the instruction manual so I can easily go over what all the pieces are. So here's a little siphon, I guess gun 1 gauge, whatever the correct term for it is. Then we have included with this the few accessories. This is what you're going to use to connect these two guys together, which will then connect to the front of here. This here, which is really neat in comparison to what I've had before, because I'm used to using this with the hose connected to it, and the hose runs off into a bucket or out of my window, which my aquarium sits next to. But in this case, we have this little tool here, which is pretty neat because it is meant to connect on the side of a bucket like that, obviously this way. And the hose will go into this little connector here, which is kind of cool because it can be tightened so that it's a snug fit and it stays in the bucket, and the actual hose doesn't go flying out of the bucket, getting water all over the floor, wall, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of neat. Then you have this housing here, which I'm curious to see how it works. Thinking of it more like a vacuum, so I can kind of rub it across the sand and get what I want out of there. That way, instead of really just digging into the sand with this. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to use that connection. You can just use the one like it would be this, just a smaller variation of it. And then the most obvious part is going to be the hose, which connects to the bottom of here. Now, I'm going to come back once I have all this put together, and we're going to see how this works. All right, now I have the whole thing set up. But something I noticed when I did this, it's definitely not a deal breaker, but what I realized is this hook for the bucket is obviously a lot wider than this rim. So even though it provides a safety mechanism for the hose to not, pop out, this is wider than this rim, which means when I put this lip on here, it sits well, but the moment I go to move the actual product at the top, the siphon at the top, this wiggled and literally just turned sideways. And even if I didn't want this to pop out, it would have fell out anyways, because this would rock sideways and eventually either fall in the bucket or out of the bucket, and basically this is rendered useless. So what I end up doing is getting 2 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, folded them up horizontally twice, and then just put it on the top of this, and now it fits just fine. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is getting a piece of double-sided foam and put in the inside of this. So next time I do this, that foam will compensate for the lack of tightness that this provides for an actual bucket to be used. Anyhow, like I said, it's not a deal breaker. Don't foresee this being a long-term issue, but it would be nice to have that actually fit on the bucket the way it should. One piece I did happen to forget to show you guys the original breakdown was this part. This is used to kind of help you cut off the water flow. You have to put this on before, so I'll get this put on a little bit later. But you put this on and then slide it across to stop the flow of water, which is great, because in most cases when you're using the siphon, most people just pinch off the hose. Well, now you have something that can live on this hose, and you slide it when you need the water flow to stop, and then you pull it back out, go from there. Anyhow, so I've now connected the cutoff valve to kind of help with the exercise that I'm going to do. Hopefully I'll be able to do this on tape. I'm doing this by myself, but I got a little cameraman to help me. But as I was telling you before, here it is connected. And if I had 2 hands and I wasn't using my phone to do this, I'd be able to show you. Basically, you use one hand to pinch this hose, and then you use your other hand to just slide this across. I've done it a few times. I will tell you this, it is a little tight. However, I like that because when I did it, it really did show its ability to stop the water flow. However, because I did do this by myself, I picked up quite a bit of stuff off the bottom of the tank that I was wanting to use as an example. But what we'll do is at least show how effective it works, and then the process of stopping the water flow and dumping out any excess sand that I pick up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead on and try and do a quick exercise. Going to go ahead on and prime the hose, and you'll be able to see where and how the water is sucked into this. And eventually you might even hear the water successfully going into the bucket. Alright, there we go. So, I have done this a few times, so a lot of the debris that was on the bottom isn't there like I would have liked it to be. But we're just going to go ahead on and show you. I have a few pieces of poop there that I want to try and pick up, but at the same time I want to kind of demonstrate how it does pick up the dirt and swirl it around within the cavity of this. Now at the same time, what it is doing is supposedly filtering the additional small particles, because at the very top of the housing is supposedly a filtration system that's supposed to take those and leave the heavier mineral at the bottom of the wand. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you give you an example of how that is kind of swirling around in there and not completely going up to the top of it. But at the end, what I am going to do is pinch this hose off and stop. So hopefully you'll catch that when it stops. So you see now the dirt can freely fall out. I mean, that's about my only demonstration there. I wish I had a better setup for a camera so I can do this a little bit better. But personally, for what I need it for, I think it works just fine. I am a little disappointed. I did this exercise a few times trying to figure out a way to hold this camera so I can give everybody a view that's sufficient. But to pick up the poop that I needed it to pick up was great. I like the fact that it's perfect for my size aquarium. It's not too big, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and I can get the job done pretty quick.